Talking Joe podcast, minds in motion. Talk about relationships, help your emotions. Behavior management when your kids start to losing it. Talk about life and all the confusion. Minds in motion. Minds in motion. Talk about relationships. I'm talking Joe podcast, minds in motion. Talk about relationships, help your emotions. Behavior management when your kids start to losing it. Talk about life and all the confusion. Minds in motion. Minds in motion. Talk about relationships. Emotion. Minds in motion. Talk about relationships.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Minds in Motion with me, your host, Jewel. This evening, I have a different type of guest. Normally, I have someone talking about therapy or about some type of medical matter, but this time I have someone talking about, yes, therapy, but in a way, it's very interesting. So I want to introduce her. She's a percussionist from the band Freetown Collective. She is an amazing, wonderful person. I was able to meet her in person. Her name is Ajibola. Ajibola from Trinidad. We will bring her up so she can smile and show everybody her beautiful face. Ajibola. I'm going to add her to the stage. Oh.
Hey.
Okay, welcome, Ajibola.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to say you're welcome, first of all, and thank you for taking the time to be with us on Minds in Motion. This evening is going to be a unique kind of show because normally we're talking about medical things or, it is of the mind and it is still of wellness. And this is why I thought it would be fitting to have you on the show. So Ajibola is a percussionist. For those who don't know what a percussionist is, she's a drummer. And I got to see and hear her vocals as well. So welcome.
Thank you.
We are going to be on a few different platforms tonight, Ajibola. So I'm just going to say hello to everyone that's listening in and viewing in. We are on TDN Radio Caribbean. We are on TDN Network, Twitch. We are also on TDN Radio on Instagram. We're also on TDN Network YouTube and TDN TV Facebook. We're also on 2 radio stations, GTM Radio Online and SBE Radio. So thank you for listening in and thank you for tuning in live to watch us. If you have any questions, I do have a text number that people can ask you questions. The number is 647-495-3224. All right. So, Ajibola.
Yes, ma'am. Oops, you cut up.
Going to.
I think you cut out for a moment there.
Yes. So tell the listening audience a little bit about Ajibola and how Ajibola got started as a percussionist.
Oh, great. That's a wonderful question. So my name is Sheena Richardson. Of course, that's the name my mom and dad would have named me. Actually, my mom didn't even name me. It was my aunts who named me. My mom often tell me the story that she didn't even get a chance to even give me a middle name. So it's Sheena Richardson by the government. But Ajibola is the name that IFA would have given to me for persons who are into African-based cosmology or religion. That's a Yoruba-based practice. um, and the oracle of Ifa through divination would give a name. And so Ajibola was the name that was given to me, and it means that one who was born with wealth and who will always have wealth. Right? I do not want anybody coming to look for me because I do not have all that amount of money. But the wealth, if I'm speaking about, is wealth in all aspects. So wealth
Yes.
in health, well-being, good friends, family.
Yes.
Um, every aspect of life. That is what this wealth is speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I embraced the name Ajibola as well as my stage name because I think that through my drumming and my voice, I am able to, you know, give to the world these gifts that would
Yes.
in turn bring wealth in other people's lives besides myself. And so I'm a percussionist. I went to the University of Trinidad and Tobago to study percussion, orchestral percussion, so timpani, marimba, xylophone, vibraphone, all of the concert percussion stuff. I would have done that for 4 years at the University of
Okay.
Trinidad and Tobago. Um, but I started playing traditional folk drums of Trinidad and Tobago from the age of 3,
Oh
right?
wow.
And
Yeah.
so I've been playing from then to now.
Mm-hmm.
So I have about 31 years experience of playing drums and percussion,
Yeah.
um, and I've done it throughout my primary and secondary school life,
Okay.
and now as a professional. You know?
Okay. Thank you for that. And I did look up your name, so I was glad you gave the definition of what Ajibola means. And it's definitely wealth. And when you came to visit Canada and you were with my students, I think you gave them a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of just overall experience. And I was taken aback as well. So I wanted to have you on Minds in Motion to share with my audience. So thank you
Aww,
for that.
you're most welcome.
And what about, so you talk about the percussionist part and playing drums, but what about the vocalist and songwriting piece? Where did that come about and how did that come about?
I tell people that I've often never really gotten the chance to open myself up with my voice often because I was afraid of it.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I entered secondary school, I started to use my voice a little bit more, but I often loved my voice more than playing drums actually.
Okay.
Um, when I started to use my voice in university, and some of the teachers saw what it could have done by way of allowing people to feel highly spirited, for want of a better word, and
Yes.
seeing persons mounted with energy, um,
Yes.
they would walk the other way, and they
Hmm.
would not, yeah, they would not acknowledge me um, for quite a bit. I had a teacher for the entire rest of my school years at
Interesting.
university did not acknowledge me in that space because
Hmm.
my voice did certain things, and every time I sang, um, it evoked certain energies that she was not
Yes.
accustomed to, and
Yeah.
she was pretty afraid. You
Huh.
know, yeah. So I didn't start to use it enough because I was afraid of that. And I was like, if every time I sing that happens, and if every time somebody just walks the other way when I sing it, then what's the point of singing, right?
Yeah.
But then my friends in the space and other people was like, no, we need to hear this voice. We need to
Yes.
acknowledge our Africanness. We need to
Yeah.
acknowledge us. And it's not only about being African, but something about my voice is to speak to the internal self of persons
Yes.
that cause them to really reflect and see where they can expand in their lives. So
Right.
I started to embrace it then and started composing more vocal pieces.
Hmm.
And so much so, I recorded an album in 2019 that I've yet to release.
Okay.
So hopefully in the next month or two, I should be releasing one of the songs from that album.
As a
Um,
soloist.
as
Oh,
a yeah, as
a
a single off of the album.
Okay.
And yeah, as a solo artist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that only because I know that you play with Freetown Collective. You play the drums for them,
That's my
and
team.
are you also a vocalist with the
I
band?
do. So when we do Oshun, as I say,
Sure, yes.
I open that particular piece with
Ah,
Freetown. Yeah, so the very majestic sounding intro that now happens for Oshun on live shows is a play between my voice and the background vocalist.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait till you come back to Toronto to do the show for the summer. I will be there and I plan to be up front. And if my mom is watching, mom, I am taking you with me.
Mommy,
So,
you need to come. I guarantee you will cry. It's that kind of
yeah,
show. It
yeah.
brings out the best in you. And if that means you releasing by way of tears, so be it.
Hmm. I know. You talk about that spirituality, and every time I hear the vocals from Freetown, I do
Mm-hmm.
feel that spiritual connection. Yeah, for sure. Um, so let's get into the drumming,
Sure.
right? The reason why I invited you on is because I wanted people to know that drums give off a vibration, they give off an energy, they speak to people, and they were used historically, and they still are being used to communicate with people. So, how do you use, because you're using mainly African drums, the djembe, right?
I
Is it
use djembe as well as I use congas and bongos, but
Congress?
congas and bongos are Latin American and they
Right.
are also Afro
Africa,
centric. Yeah. Yeah, so
okay. Okay. Well, how do you use, let's specifically, let's focus on the African drums, like
mhm,
the djembes and the congos.
mhm.
How do you use those drums to bridge the gap between the the continent and the Caribbean identity? So Africa and Caribbean, how do you bridge the gap between the two when you're drumming?
But I would definitely say that there's no gap because I am African.
Mhm,
Africa lives within me,
mhm,
and we did not lose too much of what our African self was. We may have had to hide it in Trinidad and Tobago or in the Afro Caribbean, but we did not lose out on what we had. So, for instance, in Trinidad and Tobago, I learned a lot of the traditional rhythm that belongs to what we call the Saraka.
so,
Um, Saraka is like a Thanksgiving,
okay,
and in the Saraka, you have different tribes that would have come to that Thanksgiving. So you have
okay,
the Igbo tribe, the Temne tribe, the Manding tribe, the Yorubas, you would have the Congos, and all of them would come in this one space, playing their rhythms and, having a merry, good time for all of the crops that they would have produced,
okay.
all of their families would have come out, etc. And
Mhm,
so by learning these rhythms, I just adapt them to the music that we play. So in calypso, depending on what the song is, I would tell the members of Freetown, all right, I'm going to use this rhythm. Or they might say, can you play this rhythm on top of that? So let's take, for instance, uh, is it Take Me Home? Yeah, on Take
mhm.
Me Home, the intro to that, we usually do like an excerpt from David Rudder's Everybody and
Yeah,
Rage. And if you know what I mean, and if
right.
you know what I mean, so Lou and Mud were like, hey, I want a heavy Shango rhythm on top of that.
Okay.
You know? And
Yeah.
so I was like, yeah, no problem. Because one, David Rubber is also a practicing Orisha devotee, right?
Okay.
And then, you know, Mud loves anything to do with his African side of
Yes.
himself.
Himself,
Lewis
yes.
Lou is no different,
Right.
and I'm like, all right, this is what you all want. this is right down my alley. Let's give the people what you know what they want. And the thing about it
Yeah.
is, for a very long time, to Orisha in Trinidad and Tobago was often shunned upon. It was often seen as what's the word I'm trying to look for?
Um, dark,
To
evil,
yeah,
spooky,
dark and
witchy, and
evil,
yeah,
witchy, but more and more you find that a lot of people are, you know, investigating. A lot of people are asking questions, and
yes,
when they hear the rhythms, they're like,
yeah,
why does this rhythm make me feel a sort of way?
this
Why do
way,
I feel so connected? Why do I feel as if I'm right at home?
yeah,
As opposed to when I listen to something else. It
yeah,
sits
yeah,
right in
yeah,
your stomach, you
yes.
know.
I'm smiling because my grandmother was a spiritual Baptist,
Oh,
and
nice.
anytime I went to the Baptist church and I heard those drums, you see
Mm-hmm.
drums,
Mm-hmm.
I know they're spiritual. I know they
Mm.
speak, and I know they, yeah. I definitely, and we could go into like getting into the spirit and not even knowing why or how. Um, but they're definitely spiritual for sure.
Correct.
So, um, thank you for making that connection and letting and reminding us that we are not far removed from our African roots, right? And we need to embrace our African roots and not look at what social media is telling us about who we are, right?
Correct.
And with actually with social media, we should be more knowledgeable about who we are because there's so many platforms that tell us about who we are and where we originated, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, um, Freetown, the heartbeat of Freetown, the band's music is very message driven,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you describe when the drum needs to shout or to emphasize a lyric when it needs and then when it needs to whisper to let vocals breathe? How do you describe that? How can you describe that to the listeners?
For me, I think that's pretty easy.
Mhm,
So on stage, we all have a conversation,
mhm.
and I think what we try to do on the stage is really pray with each other, for want of a better
Mm,
description.
mhm.
And so you would find if somebody is lacking in a word, um, we add different layers,
Mhm.
And so while Muhammad is praying, he would say something, and if something needs emphasizing or embellishing,
Yeah.
sometimes the keyboard will play something and I respond to that. So
Okay.
we are always in constant conversation by way of prayer and meditation. It's
Wow.
never isolation that's happening on stage. That's why we utilize in ears, right? So the keyboardist and also Rockers, who is using the machine, the Ableton machine, they both have talkbacks.
Okay.
So sometimes if they say something, it's like, yeah, we're going here, or we're moving up to a particular chord. When they move to that, all of us feel something generated within
Yes.
us. You understand? So we move with that. So for me, I know that if a chord builds, all right, it's
Mhm.
time for me to raise as well.
Okay.
And then there are spaces where I and the drummer would have a conversation. This is the drum set player, where he would come down, and if something is happening very soft and sultry, he would give way for me to now use a little more of my effects to
Mhm.
come down soft with my rhythms, just to give light touches, to just create the atmosphere and the environment for people to just be in that calm and meditative state or reflective mode. So it's a constant conversation with all the musicians on stage
Okay.
and the vocalists.
So, are you telling me that sometimes it's a little bit of improv, even when
Of
you're on
course,
live?
of course, of
Wow.
course, of
So,
course. So
no
it's
matter
it's
what
always
you bring,
composing. We're
yeah.
always
Wow.
composing. Even though we rehearse, like on the
Yeah.
stage, it's sometimes you go and the crowd just
On the crowd,
gives
the
a
energy
different
of the crowd.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Because
So
I mean, I go to church. I go to
mhm.
Pentecostal church, not spiritual Baptist church,
Mm-hmm.
but I do hear, I see the not here, I see the musicians. They're communicating constantly through the
Of
earpiece.
course,
They're
of
saying things.
course.
I'm like, what are they saying? Like,
Yep, yep,
and
yep,
so that's the conversation. Like,
yep.
okay, wow. And I can see sometimes they're like the vocalist will say like, bring it up or like
Of
stop and
course, of
or
course.
no music and just energy
And
with a
that's to
drum.
help. That's to help the audience too. What is
Yes.
the message I'm trying to portray? What am
Yeah.
I trying to leave with you? So we have to constantly, and you see the role of an artist. It's not
Yes.
just to come on and play. All right, I play
Right.
my song and it's done. But what is
Right.
happening in the environment? What is the atmosphere saying? How can we play with that? How can we
Yeah.
transfer energy in an effective way? You
Right.
know?
Hmm. Well, I thought, okay, I wonder if other people are observing these things when I'm, maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into
I
when
don't
I'm
think you
listening
are.
to music, I'm watching as well. So I'm like, what's going on here?
Mhm.
But thank you for explaining that. So now I understand. For those of you who see this happening, now you know what's happening, right?
Correct.
Um, so beyond the metrotome, right? In the band, in a band or the band, with such a rich melodic structure, Freetown, do you see your role as a timekeeper or as another vocalist telling the story through the skins and the wood?
I would say a bit of both. And
Hmm.
as I was explaining to you with the interplay between myself and the drummer, sometimes he pulls out, and I have to carry that timekeeping part of the band. You know, there are times when he just is driving with the kick, and the rest of the percussion and timekeeping is led by me.
Okay.
So we opened this weekend gone in Dominica um, with an incantation. Oh, time will tell. Think you're in heaven, but you're living in hell. And all he had to do was play
Yes.
the kick. But that is
Mhm.
very Rastafarian driven, where you have the
Yeah.
clang, 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 clang. So that was led, driven by me with that, those rhythms,
Hmm.
and then him playing a little less on the kit. So there's
Okay.
that. But then I also have to, you know, act as a vocalist in the midst of things, because I too have a voice
Right.
you know and not a voice as in my physical voice, but with the percussion. it's
Yes.
knowing
Yes.
it's knowing when to add a chime or a rumble effect on the cymbals, or
Hmm.
when to pull out the shaker at times and just you know be a little more percussive, or use some bells in certain
Yeah.
instances. So sometimes when we play reggae, you know the timbales is there just to add light effects. It's not, sometimes people say,
Yes.
the percussionist not playing. Yes, I
Yes.
am. I'm
Yes.
looking for my space, for where my voice needs to be heard. I don't
Yeah.
have to be playing constantly,
Right.
but when I am heard, bet your bottom dollar is very effective,
Yes.
whatever it is, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's that.
I was thinking, do you have to, I haven't seen your performance live, but do you have a moment throughout your performance where maybe um, Mohammed or um, I forget his name now,
Lou,
Lou, where they would stop and say, all right, on the percussions or on the drums is Ajibola, and then you
of
get to
course.
do your thing?
Of course. I get to solo, or what we call ramage a bit.
Ramage,
Um,
yes.
I get to do that
Hmm.
whenever they find it fit.
Okay.
More so on the song "Mass Come Again."
Yes.
When he talks about "Kid them the drum is thunder now," that line, I
Yeah.
just go crazy. You
Wow.
know, and do like a bit of a solo there. But yeah, there are moments where you know
You have your time.
Muhammad would be like, "Go, Sheena, just." And I always have to be ready for that. I've learned
Right.
from
So
a
yes.
very young age. Like sometimes people singing and then they just point like solo, and you just have to be
Have to.
ready for anything.
Right.
So I always keep my chops up for that, and I'm ready to deliver anytime I'm called
Yeah.
upon to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that. I do that with pride.
Yeah, because it's almost as if it's almost comparable to when someone says, all right, freestyle. You just got to be
Correct.
ready to come up with something that makes sense and sounds good to the listener.
Correct. And I mean,
Right?
after you do it so many times, you don't even think about it anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the whole aim of practicing. You
Yeah.
practice thing, you do that while shedding, and while you shed, you come out of the shed,
Right.
you come on stage and always performance. So all of that practice now needs to be put into
Put
play.
into a play, right?
Hmm.
Okay. The Calypso evolution. Calypso was born from resistance, as we know. How does bringing traditional African percussion back into the calypso space reclaim the original spirit of defiance? Sorry, defiance.
Again, I think it never left, because even when the drum was banned, like spiritual Baptists utilized their mouths by way of
Mm,
adoption.
mm,
So when you
yes.
listen to old calypsos, you would hear adoption in it. You would
Right.
hear the drum in it. So it never left. It just took on a different form,
Hmm.
and it was transferred also into different instruments. So in the bass line, you hear that real kind of adoption by, let's take Shadow's bass line for example. Boom, beating, boom, 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 beating.
Hmm.
That's like adoption. Boom, boom, beating,
Right.
boom, beating, boom, boom, beating. That's adoption in itself in its purest form.
Okay.
You know.
I just wrote
Um,
that down because I didn't know what that was called. We'll
yeah.
just call it like chanting, but yeah,
That's what we call adoption.
adoption,
Doption. So when the drum was banned,
POP.
yeah, when the
ION.
drum was banned, the spiritual Baptists had to use something, and they used their
Yes.
mouths.
Right.
So half of the songs they would have been singing, clapping your hands, whoa, papa.
Yeah.
So that was the
Yeah.
drum. That was the drum.
Right. Hmm.
You know. And so, if you look at persons like Lord Relator and Lord Superior, and they when they traveled long ago, was himself on guitar, and he used to
Right.
travel with a guy named Lion, a very good elder in the community and very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And Lion is also a member of the Orisha community. So he traveled with Lord Superior, not Lord Superior, Lord Relator
Relator.
on most of his tours. Just a drum
Mm-hmm.
and guitar. You
Wow.
know, um, a lot of those old recordings too, when you listen to it, is
Yeah,
a
it's
folk
true.
drum and a clarinet, and so the drum was always in there,
Right.
and when it was not there, you would hear adoption. So it was still
Yeah.
there, by way of vocalizations. And if it wasn't
Right.
there by adoption, then within the bass line, you're sure to find the rhythm of the drum in there, you
Okay.
know?
You can like just the way you speak, and the knowledge you have. You saying you have 30 plus years of experience, it shines through in just the way that you describe the music and the drums. And knowing your history, you have to know the history, right?
My elders took their time with teaching me, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
But I also hold a master's in carnival and cultural studies from the University of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, which makes
And so I went to do that because a lot of the knowledge that I would have been learned, of course, nobody quite takes you on unless you
yeah.
give them a paper. And so I wanted to match the knowledge that I have with what other people are saying, or what
Yeah.
just to add to the discourse of what has already been written on Trinidad culture and carnival, and
Okay. Can we stay on this for a few minutes?
sure.
I've never heard of this carnival and cultural studies,
Mm-hmm.
but it makes sense to have a course of such to educate not just Trinidadians, but people on a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much controversy, especially now that there's carnivals all over the world. And my question to you is because I interviewed Terry Lyons on another platform that I do shows on.
Right.
And she was talking about the fact that she feels that Trinidad should have patented carnival as their own, so that Trinidad would have. I'm just paraphrasing, right? This is not
Mm-hmm.
exactly what she said, but basically, that Trinidad would have a framework of what a carnival is, and not to say that they have to stay within parameters, but that Trinidad would have the say so as to how it should be conducted, if that makes sense to you. What is your thought process around that?
Uh,
Not gatekeeping at all,
I
because
would
you
I
want to
would
share the
say
culture.
I would say every Caribbean island, and by extension every nation, has their own version of what they think carnival is.
Hmm.
Right? If you look at Africa, particularly West Africa, there are lots of
Yes.
Africanisms that would have influenced mass in particular. Let's take, for instance, the Gilide festival that happens in Yoruba land, which honors the divine feminine. If you look at our Dame Lorraine, Big Bust, and Big Bottom,
Yes.
if you look at Gilide, it
Also
speaks to
that.
that,
Okay.
right? If you look at the hats that chiefs wear in Yoruba land as well, with the fringes, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
The
that
Midnight
is
Robbers.
exactly, that is
Wow.
evident to that. And there's so many other examples that I could bring across that would have been, you know, Africanisms from Yoruba land or from Africa in the diaspora.
Right.
Now, I would say personally that a lot of the other carnivals beside the Caribbean would have borrowed from or patented from Trinidad Carnival.
Hmm.
Notting Hill Carnival, point blank, if you look at the history, it's because of a Trini
Who brought it there?
who brought it there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you go
Same
to
for
New
Toronto
York,
Carnival.
exactly, you go to
Yeah. Hmm.
Toronto, all of these larger nations, definitely there was an influence of a Trinbagonian in
Yeah.
those spaces that brought together that, carnival, and then they spread it to different islands.
Yeah.
However,
Hmm.
each island has their own thing. So if you go to the Bahamas and the BVI, the USVI, they have jump canoe,
Junk canoe. Yes.
So
Yes.
they have their own way of celebrating. They have their own way of merrymaking, you
Yeah.
know. Um, Carnival for Trinidad was originally around Emancipation time.
Right.
And because of the European influence, they brought it closer towards Easter.
Uh-huh.
Where so then they would have been like, all right, let's do away with the flesh, you know,
Yes.
flesh of the body, all
Yes.
of these other flesh, and let's abstain for 40 days.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all they get all the time to have all their fun, and
Right.
now, but it was really done around emancipation time.
Okay.
And so that's why I think Toronto
Toronto does it around
does
Emancipation
it,
time. And I was
right?
actually explaining that to someone just this week because a lot of people don't know that we
Hmm.
still have emancipation in Toronto at that particular time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it still stays somewhat in its original form. However,
Mhm.
I think that each island has something unique to offer. Trinidad has soca and calypso. Dominica has bouillon. You
Mhm.
know, St. Lucia has their own thing. You know, Jamaica has mento and whatever else. So it's all about identity. We could
Yeah.
have all of the same things, all of the same ingredients, but what makes Jamaica special? What makes
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago? I would say, however, Trinidad and Tobago is very unique. One of the best carnivals you will get, hands down, by way
Mhm.
of everything. And I'm not just talking about the bikini and beads, I'm talking about every aspect of our carnival. People,
Camboulet.
exactly, people don't take the time out to really look at all of the traditional aspects of carnival
Yes.
that made carnival what it is today. You know,
Right.
so things like camboulet, things like the traditional mask, things like the stick fighting competitions,
Yes.
you know, all of these things make up or made up the framework of carnival or the
Right.
carnival that we now have. If you
Right.
don't, I mean, anytime I try to tell people, anytime you visit carnival, don't just go to the fets, go to what
Go to
was
every.
the genesis of
Yes.
what had you there in the first place. You
Yes.
understand? So I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, I think each island and each place has what's unique to them. But if you're looking for an experience like no other that is really multifaceted, because if you come to Carnival, you get the traditional side of things, you get the commercial side of things, and you get the food and everything else that goes with it. So
Yeah.
it's a melting pot of so much different things that I don't think that you would get in other places. You
Okay.
know,
Thank you for that explanation. And this is my mother who says Grenada too because of the
I
Grenada.
agree. I
Yes.
definitely agree, moms, with
Yes.
Grenada, and having just come from Grenada
Yeah.
and having my grandfather also have Grenadian roots, particularly
Hmm.
from Carriacou. The Saraka that I spoke about, Grenadians came to Trinidad as indentures, you know, indentured persons, you know. So, not indentured laborers as in East Indian. Eh? What I mean by
Yes.
that, they came as
Free.
freed
Yes.
enslaved,
Yeah.
right?
Looking for
And
better
so, and
opportunities.
so
Yeah.
when they came, they got their lands and what and so forth, and they were able to set up, you know, these yards. So all of these different tribes again
Made
came
up.
and
Yes.
made up, you know. So that's why Trinidad and Grenada have
Strong
a
ties.
stronghold together.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people, if you check most of Trinidadians today, their hereditary is from Grenada.
From Grenada. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So true. So true. Thank you for that. I loved that explanation. Now, for those of you who are listening and viewing, so you have a better understanding of the history of Carnival and why you should visit Trinidad, but also embrace the other carnivals that are around, right? Um, so let's get back into some questions and about the speaking of the drum being a modem of context to communicate. Um, Mohammed and Lou use deep poetic lyrics, as we know, in the
Mhm.
band. When you hear a new lyric, how do you, as the drummer, translate that emotion into specific drum pattern? How do you do that?
At first begin, I always have to be listening attentively, because sometimes in the delivery it's a bit different. Remember, I spoke about us rehearsing, and sometimes it doesn't come out quite as how we rehearsed. You
Mhm.
know, so sometimes where I would have put a shaker, I now have to use the symbol to
Mhm.
express what he says. Sometimes I use nothing at all. I just give it the room to breathe. You know,
Mhm.
every time is different. I really, I always have to have a very keen ear
Mm-hmm.
as to everything that goes on. And a lot of the times too, beside listening to Muhammad or listening to Lou, I also listen to what the background vocalist does,
Okay.
because that also informs what I would play. Because sometimes their background vocals are already busy. So you don't want to get too crowded. You don't want the music to be too heavy, because
Mm-hmm.
you want to allow the listener to have palatable parts of the music,
Right.
if you know what I mean. So I have to really sit. Yeah, when I'm on stage, I did. Coming to think of it, I never really thought of that. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I often have to sit and really have a keen ear as to what is happening.
Yeah. You do it, it's so natural, it comes so natural to you. So you probably don't think about what you're actually doing, but this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's developing a pattern, and um it's definitely a gift because not everyone could do that. And even someone that plays a drum just like naturally plays the drum wouldn't be able to do that unless they have that ear for the music, right?
Yeah, because it's not, you see, some people could be very rudimental and be like, all right, I rehearse this, and this is what needs to be played. And that's not how I
Yes.
approach music
Yes.
making. I do not approach music making in a very regimented, square
Yes.
cut, because it's
Yeah.
not it's not always like that. It's not always like that. and
Yeah.
and if it is, we want people to go away with something or feeling different, then we need to do something different
Right.
you know
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. um I was going to ask you a question. I'll leave it for later, a little bit later in the in the questioning. um In the song Feel the Love, or the song Human, there is a distinct conversation happening. How do you engage in a call and response with the lead singer in real time on stage in those songs? Or have you? You have. You have to.
You feel the love that's in the air, you never miss it. That song, oh, where we have an interplay, and Mud always does it where we perform, is when he says, "Take me to the river."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He
River.
said, "Take me to the river," and we just go up. Yeah, "Take me to the
Yes.
sea," and we just do these very intense drops, like pop,
Yeah.
pop, and then I just free up in there. So I just allow my hands to flow. It's
Yeah.
literally like a river washing you, as he says, "Wash me with the music, play me with your
Yes.
melody," and I I often go back to the word that one of my drumming colleagues in the percussion world in Trinidad, his father used to say, because we used to play with Ella Andal, who I started
Oh,
playing drums and
wow.
singing with
Oh,
from a very young age. Um, his name is Jaja Unilu,
okay.
may soul rest. He used to always talk about the drums having chords,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And to me, what an analogy, because a drum is an untuned percussion. It does not, have notes that you could press on it. Okay, you're going to get
Yeah.
a direct G or a direct A, But what he meant by that is you finding your slot in there, and how can you harmoniously blend in with the rest of the band?
Mm-hmm.
How can your drumming chords, you know, add to the spirit, or add to the sensory glands
Mm-hmm.
being wet, you know?
Yeah.
How can you do that? So
Hmm.
you have to find the sweet spot. Some cultures call it, I think, flamenco dancers call that duende, when you have this heightened spiritual moments,
Mhm.
that sweet moment where you almost feel as if your spirit is drifting away uncontrollably, you know,
Yeah.
and feeling just right in the moment within
Hmm.
everything, So yeah, we have that moment in feeling love. Take me to the river, take me to the sea, yeah. Wash me with the music, play me
Yes.
with your melody. That's yeah. I feel like I'm tapping into the chords of the drum then.
Okay, okay. And I mean, when we listen to it on YouTube, it is definitely not the same as live. And as I said at
Correct.
the beginning of the show, at the top of the show, I am more than excited and can't wait to hear you live. So I don't know if you've gotten. I know you've gotten a date already, right? You have a date. I think
I don't think
Mohammed
we
was
have
saying.
a date as yet. I think it's still to be confirmed,
Okay,
but
but it's
yeah.
definitely over here. I'm going to say Emancipation Weekend,
Yes,
um,
yes.
Carnival, Toronto Carnival Weekend. So if you are listening from somewhere else and you want to come visit, it's definitely that weekend, and I'm going to be there. So I will be posting on my page as well.
Come on down.
Um, yes. Um, Many believe different drums vibrate at different truth frequencies.
Mm.
Which drum in your kit do you feel speaks most honestly during live Freetown sets?
Excuse me. Once I have a djembe, I think the djembe does that. If I don't have a djembe in my setup, it depends on the type of gig. So if I have the acoustic sessions where we do a show called Tight Spaces, I
Okay.
use my cajon and my bongos and other effects. In
Hmm.
that scenario, it would be the cajon because that cajon does everything. It
Which one
acts
is
as
that? The cajon?
it's like a box that I sit on, and it sounds as if there's a drum set player,
Ah, I've
but
seen
it's
that
just
before. Okay,
yes,
now I know what it's called.
yeah. So
I'm
when
like,
I'm
they
in
play in
that,
boxes? That's a box.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Cajon.
it's a
Okay.
Peruvian instrument that originally there would have been like guitar strings in it, and when the guitar strings vibrate, then it gives out that snare-like sound in it.
Okay.
The more modern ones now, like the one I have, has snares similar to what you would have on the snare drum of a drum set.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
you have like a complete drum set in a box played with the
Mhm.
hand. So in acoustic settings, that's the drum that speaks most. That's the drum that has the voice then for me,
Okay.
and it speaks most honestly because it has to carry everything.
Hmm.
When I have a bigger setup of congas, bongos, effects, djembe, timbales, I think even though I don't use the djembe that much, it speaks volumes when I do have to use it, and it's almost as if people know that hey, it's serious business when the djembe starts playing. You know,
Yes.
we need to come to some sort of attention or be
Yeah.
attentive, or it strikes something in people to say, all right, it's time to listen now,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
tune in, you
Yeah.
know all the time it's everything is nice, we're having fun, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
but
start to feel that
yeah,
rhythm, that
and then when you
energy.
feel the rhythm of the djembe, it's like, oh god, yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
something serious happening now. Yes, I'm feeling good, but I need to check myself now. I need to, it's about evaluation time,
Right.
that kind of
Hmm.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to. Okay. So I'm looking at the time and I'm looking at the questions. Let me see. Um, so we just talked about the feeling. Now we're talking about drumming can be intense. It can be a flow state. Do you use rhythm to ground yourself when the emotional weight of the song becomes heavy?
I think so. I often tell the band that it's therapy for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, Playing, because sometimes we might be working through a particular scenario in our lives,
Yeah.
and you rehearse the song so much or you listen to some of the songs so much, um, that it becomes second nature. And then you do it live one day, and the audience evokes a certain feeling, and then you realize that yeah, there's a part of me that I didn't really work on, or there's an aspect of me
Hmm.
that I didn't really check out. But why am I feeling this way? Why is this,
Yeah.
almost like pulling apart layers that I thought I had already healed, you
Dealt with.
know?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
for me it's like that, and anytime it's like that, sometimes you might see me closing my eyes, and soaking myself into the rhythm,
Mhm.
also too, because I don't want to cry on set.
Yes. 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 Yes.
But yeah, it's a very real scenario happening every time we perform, and we try
Right.
to be as authentic as possible.
Mhm.
um, we have we're human too, sometimes people feel artists is not human. We are human too. We feel,
That's right.
we exist, we have things happening in our lives that
Absolutely.
need addressing.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as much as we love performing, but it's also therapy for us. It's
Right.
also a form of catharsis for us. So yeah,
Right.
most times it's my catharsis, um, and I use it as such. Yeah.
Mhm. So it can help to evoke certain emotions and also heal emotions when you're playing.
Correct.
Would you say certain melodies, or is just playing in general?
Yeah, I would say playing in general,
Okay.
because it could happen at any point. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it matters not sometimes. You could be playing a very, you know,
Upbeats.
upbeat,
And then,
highly energetic song,
yeah,
and then you want to know, like, why
why
is
am I so
why
emotional?
the words take me to the river hitting me like this,
Yeah.
so as I said, no matter how much you rehearse or how much you know a lyric, you would think you
Yeah.
know the lyric, and then you reach and it's like, this, what's happening,
Yeah. Wow. Hmm. Um, let's take this time to talk about Ajibola's teaching, your lessons that you do, your classes that you do. Let's talk and let people know about that as well.
Oh, sure. So
Yeah.
I would have founded this year an initiative called Girls Can Play Drums Too, right? Of course, everybody has the notion, or most people have the notion, that playing percussion is a male dominated industry. Girls can't do it. If girls do it, well, they're a little rough on the edges, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on.
Yeah.
My whole idea for creating it is for girls of all ages to see themselves as percussionists, but more so to allow them to know that they could play the drums of their own lives. So the drum is just the tool or the vehicle to allow young girls and women to really balance themselves in every aspect. So balance themselves by way of health, balance themselves by way of you know, family, balance themselves by way of, all aspects of your life that needs balancing. That's what I am focusing on. So I had a workshop recently in Cafe Blue, Trinidad. A lot of women came out. They had a wonderful time. We did a drum circle. They learned some rhythms. They learned songs. It grounded their spirit. It allowed their mental health and well-being to be really stabilized. I had my cousin April James come and do a mental health session, talking to the women about mental health, and you know being able to know when you need to check in with someone, or know when you need to get professional help. I also had Keegan Taylor come in and do a calendar self-defense workshop so the women knew certain, ways to detect how someone may approach them in a way that may be violent to them or may be
Right.
harming them in some way, So, and then at the end, we had this whole rhythm section vibe where everybody just free up,
Nice.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I also did recently, your school and one school in Trinidad and Tobago, which happens to be my alma mater, which is St. Christopher's
Okay.
Anglican. I did all girls there. And, the response thus far has been really, really great. Teachers as well as students were really engaged by the fact that, they could play, they could see themselves playing, and I really, really think that the way that it's heading, it's going to, reach to a city near you, whoever's like, whoever's looking, my prayer is for Girls Can Play Drumstick to go worldwide in every aspect, and for people to really see women as well-rounded women, so not just as percussionists, but women who are balanced, who know what they're about, who know that life is worth living, and they can
Yeah.
utilize the drum to stabilize themselves, because that is what it did for me.
Therapy is therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yes. All around.
So
I like that that you encompass, you look at the whole self, you look holistically, you look at not just the therapeutic piece, but also, the protective piece and safety piece for the girls when you did your workshop, right? Um, there's never enough time when we do these shows, and my alarm in my building decides to start going off. Somebody's alarm is going off.
oh god.
Um, but I want to say thank you so much. I've learned so much, and I'm sure the viewing and listening audience have learned so much from you as well. I got a comment from the back. The producer of the show also says, "Thank you so much for teaching us how carnival and drums play a role in together, how they melt together." So thank you for that.
Thank you
Um,
both. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you
yeah.
for having me on the Minds in Motion. I really had fun. I really, really had fun.
Okay, so we could have gotten into more, but there's
Of
another
course.
time.
Of
We
course.
will
Of course.
definitely do this again. There's another show that I am the host of. It's called Dissect, and we
Okay.
dissect and get into things. So I'm definitely inviting you for that.
Sure thing.
Um, I'm going to close the show, and I'm going to say thank you to all the viewers and all the listeners for tuning into Minds in Motion. And I want to say thank you so much again, Ajibola, for being with
My
us.
pleasure.
Tonight, you got real talk, real strategies for real situations on Minds in Motion. Thank you so much. Tune in next week, same time, same place. Take care. Have a good evening. Bye.
I'm talking Joe podcast, minds in motion. Talk about relationships, help your emotions. Behavior management when your kids start to losing it. Talk about life and all the confusion. Minds in motion. Minds in motion. Talk about relationships. I'm talking Joe podcast, minds in motion. Talk about relationships, help your emotions. Behavior management when your kids start to losing it. Talk about life and all the confusion. Minds in motion. Minds in motion. Talk about relationships.